In 1909, this mill building in Pendleton, Oregon, began crafting some of the finest Native American blankets in the country. However, the birth of Pendleton Woolen Mills can be traced to 1863, when Thomas Kay, a young English weaver, set up shop in America's newest state. It was Thomas Kay's grandsons who purchased and began operating this new mill, creating the foundation for what today is a true American icon. So prized were these original Indian blankets, they became a standard of value for trading and credit among Native Americans. In 1912, Pendleton purchased another mill just over the border in Washougal, Washington. We recently visited there to see firsthand how a wool blanket is made. Representing the 5th generation of this family business, Mill Division Manager Charles Bishop, here with his father and Pendleton CEO Brock Bishop, explains how it all begins.
The wool comes to us scoured. 50% of the weight of the wool on the sheep's back is removed, and it's made up of lanolin, greases, and the dirt that the sheep can get into. In the United States, we've been buying wools from some of the same wool growers for over 70 years. This particular blend of wool goes into our Indian blankets, and it's made up of wools grown in the southwest United States as well as Australia. We blend 5 different grades of wool to get the characteristic in our blankets that we need to have.
The process starts in the dye house, where the wool can be dyed at different stages of production, either as yarn, known as package dyeing, or as fiber, known as stock dyeing. These dyeing kettles each have a 2,000-pound capacity. Next, different grades of wool are mixed together and fed into the carding machine. The wool stock passes through a series of rollers which smooth out and align the wool fibers. The resulting fine sheets of fiber are then divided into thin, continuous strands called roving. This roving is then wound onto large spools in preparation for the spinning frame.
In spinning, we insert twist into the yarn, and we give that yarn and fiber strength. From there, we take that spun yarn and we wind it onto either dye tubes for dyeing, or we wind it onto cones for weaving. And in the process, we inspect that yarn and we remove any defects that we find in the yarn.
Dozens of old maple hardwood bobbins are used for this step. Once wound and inspected, the yarn is now prepared for weaving. 2 sets of yarns, one moving vertically, the other horizontally, are interlaced to form cloth. Before weaving, the lengthwise or warp yarns are wound onto a warp beam.
In the warp, we might have as many as 4,000 ends of yarn, and it's very important that we bring all those 4,000 ends together in a controlled manner. And for a plaid especially, you have to make sure you get the right number of ends in every color to make the fabric turn out right.
Product manager Ross Robertson, originally from Scotland, has been in the woolen business for over 30 years. Now, all that's left for our blanket is a few finishing touches.
This process here allows us to both wash the fabric and mill it. Milling is really a softening of the fabrics to prepare the fabric for further processing. It's going to get napped on a napping machine. Many people will call that raising.
Here, rolls covered with fine wires gently brush the fabric surface to raise the individual fiber ends. This produces that soft, fuzzy nap often seen in blankets. The typical finished fabric measures between 60 to 90 inches wide. The blanket is now cut and sewn to its final dimensions. After cutting, a label is attached to identify the style of each blanket. A special binding is then added, still sewn on with individual attention given to each blanket. After passing a final inspection, the blankets are folded one by one and packaged, ready to comfort someone through a long, cold winter's night.
Well, here it is, our finished product. Manufactured from carefully selected wools, spun into yarn, woven into fabric, and cut and sewn into blankets. We've been making these blankets for over 5 generations, and we hope our customers will be able to get several generations more use out of them.